Now we can use this little bit of work that we've done so far to derive the short-term labor demand curve. We can use this curve to tell us what will happen to the firm's employment as the wages that they offer changes, still holding capital constant. We have done this entire time. This means that if wages rise, the firm might hire fewer workers. And if wages fall, they will hire more workers. The curve reflects how labor becomes more expensive or more affordable relative to the wage rate. The labor demand curve slopes downwards because of two key reasons. First, hiring an additional worker increases the firm's cost. Second, as more workers are added, the marginal product of labor, or the extra output from hiring one more worker, tends to decrease due to the law of diminishing returns that we talked about earlier. Remember, this law says that if you keep adding workers while keeping capital constant, each new worker adds less total production than the previous one eventually. Therefore, the firm is less willing to hire additional workers at higher wage rates. Let's say a firm operates a small bakery with one oven, so capital is constant. They only have that one oven. Initially, hiring one worker results in a lot of baked goods being produced. But if they hire a second worker, production may increase even further. But as they keep adding more and more workers without increasing the number of ovens, eventually they begin to crowd the kitchen up. By the end, each new worker adds less and less to the bakery's total output. So the firm won't want to keep hiring unless wages drop enough to make that extra worker worthwhile. So this diminishing productivity explains why the labor demand curve slopes downward. But we don't have to rely on intuition. We can see this graphically. So the firm's value of the marginal product curve is its labor demand curve. So this makes us very straightforward that that curve serves basically two purposes. So we have the hourly wages on the y-axis and the number of workers on the x-axis in this example. So let's look at the first value marginal product curve. Initially, the wage is here at $22. So firm is going to be willing to hire 8 workers. But what happens if the market wage falls to $18? Well, we would move along the labor demand curve, the value of marginal product curve. So we start at 22 with 8 workers, and we move down until we reach $18, and that's going to lead us to 9 workers. Now, that's because, just like before, the marginal value of the 9th worker at the beginning was $18, so that's below the wage that they would command. But once the wage falls to $18, that is the value they would provide the company. So the firm would be willing to hire that last worker. At the lower market wage, it's now profitable to hire that worker. Now, the second curve here, the value marginal product curve prime, or whatever you want to use to describe that tick. That shows what happens if the price of the good increases. So now at each level of workers, the value that they're producing for the firm is higher because the firm is able to get a higher price for the goods that they're selling. So when the price of a good increases, that's going to shift the curve out and to the right. If the price fell from this original curve here, it would shift the curve inward because the firm is now making less money for each additional worker and each unit sold. But now in this example, the price is higher. We've shifted out here to the right. The firm is now willing to hire more workers at each wage level because the return from hiring each worker is higher. This is why the demand curve shifts to the right. Each worker is now effectively more profitable. It is as if each employee is more valuable because the firm can make more money from each of them. In this case, shifting the demand curve to the right is called an increase in demand. At every wage rate, the firm is willing to hire more workers because they produce more revenue for the firm. So back at $22 an hour here, trace that out until it crosses the new labor demand curve. That is consistent with the firm hiring 12 workers.